Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker shills, death slayers, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome. And let's talk Turkey today. And look at this coup in Turkey. One of the things, of course, that's the most fascinating about it is that it came and went practically overnight. I know I was out of town for the weekend, and I heard about it, and it was hard to keep track of the events. Details were scant, and it all happened very quick. And very notable that this chain of events happened where Erdogan, the president of Turkey, was able to record a phone message or do a streaming phone message and get it through social media and somehow inspire a stop to this coup that barely got off the ground. And very dramatic events. When you see the footage, there's some footage of helicopters shooting at police vehicles. It's very dramatic, and I'll attach a lot of those below. But apparently, a faction of the military took over state TV, declared martial law and curfew, and attacked Ankara police headquarters, and that's what the footage is from. And a fair amount of carnage in a short amount of time. 265 civilians killed, 104 soldiers killed, 100,000 people hospitalized, and so a number of people sacrificed for this false flag event, and I do think it's a false flag event. I'll get to that a little later in the video. So now we have this purge going on, and this call for this Islamic cleric in the U.S. for the last 15 years, Fethullah Gulen. And I think the truth probably lies somewhere in between. I would assume that this cleric, Fethullah Gulen, has some effect on these internal events inside of Turkey. And to a certain extent, there could very well be some U.S. involvement. In fact, the idea that the incorrect air base that the United States uses in its strikes in Syria against ISIS is also the airport that was used in this coup. So that's a interesting coincidence. Turkish planes that were used in the coup flew out of this air base, and afterwards F-16s were refueled in the air from tankers. So there's a little peculiarity there. That there's this implied U.S. involvement, and so there's parts of this that kind of smack of a CIA destabilization effort or coup. It was very well organized. Key points were cut off immediately, and the overall plan was relatively good. But unfortunately, there was no popular support really. There hasn't been any popular support for the overthrow of the Erdogan government, and there also is not a majority of the military that's in favor of overthrowing an Erdogan government. So to me, that bespeaks the fact that this is an inside job. This is a false flag event, and unfortunately, a number of people were sacrificed. But like I say, the CIA isn't even dumb enough to try and instigate a coup where there isn't popular support and where there isn't a large military support. And one of the ways we also know this is the fact that the coup was so localized. Certainly, one can cut off the head to kill the snake and make the coup work, but it was baked in the cake that this coup would never succeed. And the fact that it turned so quickly the other way also is another example of why this coup was pretty much dead on arrival. And now we have Erdogan coming out and calling the coup, quote, a gift from God, unquote, and it really is for him. And Erdogan's coup is succeeding admirably. So the coup that is purported in the public and is still being used in the public narrative failed, but the actual coup, the Erdogan coup, has succeeded. So now we have 9,000 people arrested, including 3,000 military arrested, 2,700 judges suspended, and we also have more carnage today in that area too. We have 11 air-based military officials that were arrested, and then we also have the licenses of 21,000 teachers revoked as of today, and 1,577 university deans have been ordered to resign. Another 9,000 fired from the Interior Ministry, mostly police, and 118 generals and admirals detained. So this is a great opportunity for Erdogan to totally clean house of these elements that he's had to deal with. And with the dynamics in Turkey these days, I can see where push came to shove. We have this war on the Kurds, which of course most of the um, Turkish military is on board with, and most of the Turkish state is on board with. But we also have a crackdown on the media, crackdown on all criticism, and a family corruption scandal that the Erdogan family wanted derailed, as well as all the connections between the Turkish government, factors in the Turkish government that are also and the Turkish state that have also been involved in their connections with ISIS and the arms trade, arming the ISIS workers, and also the oil trade. And so this is a continuation of something Erdogan has been involved in before, as far as purging judges and police. He's purged judges and police that were investigating his family, and now we have just the final cleansing that he wanted to do all along. And no surprise, the EU and other government officials around the world are pointing out the fact that it seems like the Turkish government had a pre-plan and are using a list that was already made in order to round up all these subjects. And there's no doubt of that whatsoever. The rapidity of these arrests and the thoroughness of it, and all these known targets bespeaks the fact that Erdogan had this planned all along. So once again, another indicator that this is completely an inside job and a false flag. And it's kind of funny too that we recently had these overtures from Erdogan back to Russia, wanting to make friends with Russia, oddly enough, after shooting down a Russian jet so many months ago. And some of this strange behavior that Erdogan's been showing, the kind of behavior we expect from a desperate dictator. And in many respects, we find Erdogan in this position. In my inner circle of friends, I was discussing the idea that his behavior was getting erratic enough, and he was alienating enough of the players in that region that there could potentially be some sort of military coup, because we have a situation in Turkey, I assume, that is much akin to Egypt, where in many respects the military has a lot of the control, but perhaps Erdogan has completely shifted that situation there. But one of the other things that I thought was interesting is one of the alleged coup leaders that's been arrested was an attaché to Israel between 1996 and 1998. So there could be another potential for foreign influence in these events, however tenuous the connections are made. But I find it really interesting, of course, that Erdogan was in the air very quickly. There was apparently an attack made on his quarters, but there was no direct attack made on his plane. So there's another aspect of this that shows that it perhaps was not a real coup. Once again, Erdogan being in the air so quick, and then having been in the sights of the coup forces and not being taken out. So anyway, there could also be part of this could be an intention for the CIA to at least destabilize. I think there's a lot of interest in destabilizing Turkey to a certain extent, except for the fact that, of course, there's United States nukes on Turkish soil, and one of the largest militaries in the world is in Turkey. So unless the United States can work out some arrangement with the so-called proper authorities, then it could be very tenuous as far as trying to fool the destabilization of Turkey. So one of the other reasons why it doesn't seem likely that this is necessarily a CIA operation or an operation by outsiders. So that's going to be my call on this. I think it obviously looks like a false flag inside job by the Erdogan government, and he's getting everything he wants. So stay tuned as Turkey, Erdogan consolidates his power in Turkey and becomes more of a dictator than he already is. And so another one of those wonderful friends that the United States likes to keep in that neighborhood. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.